Make sure you don't miss a thing. Go to starzology.com/newsletter and sign up. Welcome to the Starzology Astrology Podcast. I'm your host, Alison Price, and I'm here again with my good friend and co-host, Arwynne O'Neill.
Hi, Alison. It's great to be here.
So nice to have you once more. So we've been doing a bit of a series on the houses, and this time we're going to be looking at the 10th house.
Yeah.
So we're going to be looking at some of the keywords for the 10th house, some of the meanings of it, and we'll go through a few of the planets in the 10th house.
Yeah.
And see what they are like and what it really means for everybody.
That sounds awesome.
Is this a house you like to use, Arwynne?
I love the 10th house. I have 3 things in there.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. It's one of my favorites.
Okay, well, that's great.
Yeah.
So,
How about you?
I've got nothing in the 10th house. So, okay, well, that'll be interesting.
It's also my Leo house, which is great.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
So to start with then, the 10th house is the house right at the top of the chart, and in the Placidus system, which is the one we're talking about, which one we use, it is the cusp of the 10th house is at the midheaven.
Yes.
So then this house in Placidus could be any kind of width wide, and you can have, obviously, 3 or more planets in it, just like that.
Yeah, for sure. What is 4 planets is a stellium, right? Or is
Three
nice.
in a conjunction. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. So are yours?
Oh yeah. They're all. It's a string of conjunctions. It's like I think 0 degrees, 5 degrees, and 13 or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with those positions, we call that a rolling stellium, or I would.
Yeah. I love that, a rolling stellium.
Because it rolls on, but they're not all within it. But anyway,
they're not all conjunct each other.
We'll have to do a thing on stelliums one day, right?
Yeah.
Certainly. Okay. All right. So then if we're going to be looking at each of the planets in the houses, perhaps we could start then with the sun in the 10th house.
Yeah, that's great.
Right,
yeah.
which is, that's a power position if ever you saw it. And also I personally believe that after the first house, the 10th house is the second most important one.
Yeah.
So...
For sure. And also, it's one of those things where if you don't know the person's birth time, you either set it for dawn or noon.
Yes.
Which puts their sun on the ascendant or in the 10th house.
10th house, yeah.
And if it's a famous person, it's more likely that you'll choose the 10th house noon thing.
Yeah.
I just happen to have been born at 11:43 in the morning, so my sun is already in the 10th house naturally.
Wow, it really is a power position. So, well, maybe you could tell us a little bit about how the sun in the 10th house is.
Well, yes. So this is not about me per se. This is just general keywords.
Yeah.
It's about your career. It's about your face to the world, not just what people see when they meet you, but like your LinkedIn profile, your web presence, your resume, your career, your public image, and also your leadership style and your reputation and status in the world. So not just your actual job like title, but your achievements.
Yes.
And what you're known for.
What you're known for.
Yeah.
And that really covers the 10th house in general. And when the sun is there, that is definitely going to support it that you are famous.
That's a very important thing for you, is that your career is important to you. Your public persona is important to you. You protect your reputation, and you are always aware of how you appear to others.
And would you say that is the case with this position?
I would say, yeah. I mean, what was I doing all day before I came here? I was messing around with my LinkedIn stuff and
really tweaking and polishing and
I've got a new thing now, which I will be writing about on my blog. Actually,
right.
I've decided that there's so much AI in the job search already.
Okay.
That it's gotten to the point now where LinkedIn, every single job that is up for like 2 or 3 days, already has over 100, and they stop it at 100.
Well, applications.
Yeah. So literally, you're applying for a job, and you can see already that like hundreds of people. It stops at 100, so it just says over 100. And it could be thousands for all you know.
And what was it before AI came along?
Well, I mean,
clearly,
you would just a job would go up, and the people who are actually literally only people who actually were qualified would apply for it.
Yes.
Now you don't actually even have to be qualified,
see.
because you can get AI to write your resume. You can get AI to write your cover letter. It even gives you that option when you have the premium LinkedIn. It says, have AI do your resume for you. It's a button. And then it's like easy apply, and everyone's going to do that. Everyone's going to automate it. Everyone's going to find a way to game the system. And then all the jobs that are actually, the people posting the jobs are saying, well, only like maybe 10% of the people who applied for this are even at all qualified, which is not a good thing for anybody.
So they're being totally overwhelmed.
It's a huge waste of time for them. And then they try to put these little weird tricks in, like, film yourself for a minute talking into the camera and tell us why you want this job. Like, I mean, how is that not discriminatory? But anyway, I'm going to go off on a rant here. But
go.
But the cool thing is that, now that AI has kind of quote unquote ruined the field of job, seeking, let's lean into that and make AI do more work for us. I'm asking ChatGPT to create an entire job search plan for me as if it were an executive recruiter, and to match me and my personality, because it knows everything about me now already, right? It knows it knows about my resume. I'm saying, okay, so given what you know about me, and then asking it what else it wants to know about me, and saying, here's all the information you already have. Let's make a job search plan, and let's match me up with companies where I would actually fit in and enjoy myself. And it's asking me follow-up questions like, are there any industries you want to avoid? Are there any industries you're particularly drawn to? Would you like a plan for how to contact the hiring manager at each of those? And I'm like, yes, please, yes, please, yes, please. Like,
whoa, I'm speechless.
Yeah, and that was a brainstorm I had while I was doing the stairs today, kind of like thinking, woe is me, I'm, searching for a job again, what a nightmare. And then I'm like, no, wait, let's, if AI wants to take over, let's give it more responsibility. Let's use it for what it's best for, which is aggregating information, which is not what humans are great at,
Yes,
yes. I get easily overwhelmed with, once I'm in a paragraph. And so I'm just spewing out all this stuff, stream of consciousness, to ChatGPT and saying, organize this information for me and tell me what to do, because I need help.
Oh, it's like your little personal assistant.
Yes, / like executive headhunter.
Okay.
Which usually you would have had to pay for. And I'm not I'm sorry, I draw the line at paying to find a job.
Yes,
I'm old school that way, but there's no, if it was guaranteed, maybe.
Wow.
If they were like, we'll find you a great job within a month. Yeah, okay, you can pay for that, but there's no guarantees.
No.
So yeah, this is the point we're at. Yeah,
that's interesting that you even know this is happening, because I have no clue about that.
I mean, I only know because I'm immersed in it every day trying to figure it out.
Yes, but you've stepped into it.
Yeah. I mean, the first step is anger for me. Generally, the first step is, why is this so hard?
Not denial.
I can't have denial, because that's just a waste of time. But the first step is anger, and then research.
Okay.
And then, how can I twist this to my benefit? This
brilliant idea.
I'm at the third stage now. So hopefully the fourth stage is success, but we'll see.
Okay.
And yes, this is a person with the sun in the 10th house.
10th house.
To pull it back to astrology, this is what consumes my waking life these days. And I suspect for a lot of people with the sun in the 10th house, it's the same. Although, to varying degrees. I think, you're very aware of your career and where you're going and what you're doing in the world. Yeah. And ever since like the early 2000s, I've had a quote unquote persona. I've been, Ms. Pink. I secured the domain MsPink.com and later MsPink.net. And I guess
you definitely are.
Not everyone has like a pseudonym, but I think a lot of people with the sun in the 10th house might.
And that's almost like to be a personality, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it might not be a pseudonymous personality, but it could be just like you're either known by your name or your credentials or your certifications or, like PhD and all that stuff that comes after the comma after your last name. Or, maybe you marry into, and that's another.
Moving up in the world.
Yeah, either way. It's,
wow.
Yeah, that the latter.
Yeah. So, that's a great insight into the sun in the 10th house, for sure.
Yeah, amazing.
Okay.
Yeah. The moon,
The moon in the 10th house.
Yeah,
yes.
That's an interesting one.
It is.
Neither of us have that.
No.
And I'm thinking, This is someone who their mother is very important to them, very influential.
Yes, because we know that the 10th house represents the mother.
Yeah.
And when the moon is there, it's like a double whammy on that too. But if we go back to the business of career, which is really the real world that we're living in, with the moon there tends to be fluctuations. And the career waxes and wanes, and that can be a tricky thing too.
Yeah.
Where perhaps you're on the rise and then maybe you're not, and it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back, career-wise, because of the fluctuations.
Yeah.
So when you're on a rise, astrologically speaking, you never see those clients. It's only when they're on the reduction.
That's a really interesting point.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what I say is, if you've got the moon there, you want to, when you have a career or something, invest and bank that money, because you've got your 7 years of feast and then your 7 years of famine, and it waxes and wanes.
Interesting.
But
are there any types of careers that different placements in the 10th house would be?
Yes. So I think with the moon there, it feels related to food production, family matters, and in all things that do with that. And of course, women's issues and women's support issues. And that sort of
Maybe
thing.
heading some sort of a women's foundation.
Yes, or a shelter.
Right.
Or, those...
Or a women's magazine.
A women's magazine, or getting your face on the cover of something or other, or having a famous mother yourself.
Right.
Where your mother's actually, because the 10th house is your house of fame. Not that everybody's famous.
Yeah, for sure. But of course, everyone has 15 minutes, as Andy Warhol.
Well, I'm still waiting, right?
Hey, we're internet famous.
Well,
sort
true. YouTube
famous a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So I think the moon in the 10th house is a good position. Any planet, really, I think, in the 10th house is in a good position, and you're going to be using that planet because it's in that sort of house that you're aware of, and you want to use these planets. So I think that's a good placement.
Yeah, for sure.
Should we have a quick look then at Mercury in the 10th house?
Yeah, I also have that.
Gosh, Arwynne.
Me.
It's all about you.
Actually, I had the moon, I forgot, in there too. But it's funny, we don't think about the moon, do we? And I do have a mother who's very influential and not famous, but she has a huge influence on me. And yes, exactly. She's racking up the educational credentials, going for her PhD now.
And at a mature age, if I may say so.
Well, yes, old enough
props to her.
Mother, for sure.
Yes. Brilliant. So you've got that. Yeah. So you've got the three up there, the sun, the moon, and now we're telling me that Mercury's there too. And I clean forgotten about this before we even sat down to do this. So Mercury in the 10th house, any insights?
Well, I mean,
a career in writing.
Talking about jobs, career in writing, career in communications. Yeah.
Blogging,
podcasting.
Interviewing
people. All of that stuff that I absolutely love.
Yes. Yeah. Because I believe that Mercury is the planet that rules podcasting.
Yeah.
Which is something it's new.
Yeah, for sure.
Last 20 years.
I've been drawn to it ever since it began.
You have. And you introduced me to it.
I did.
And that's another thing I wanted to tell you. You also introduced me to the Libby app, which, for those who don't know, so I finally got organized with that this week.
It's awesome, isn't it?
Which is, for those who don't know, it's where you can borrow audiobooks from our local library here in Vancouver.
And regular books, but who wants to read a regular book on their phone? Although some people do.
Oh, really? No.
Yeah.
I do. Well, I've just gone for the audiobook so far.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know you said to me a few times, you need to get these books. And eventually, because I had to go down there with my card and my all the hoo-ha. And finally, and I've got these books lined up and I'm thinking, this is great because as I'm going about my day, these information is pouring in.
Exactly. That's what I've been doing all day is listening to actually Annie Jacobson's new book. She's got a new book called First Platoon, which is fantastic. I'll probably be blogging about that.
Oh, reviewing it.
Oh, it's so good. It's always in her voice, which is I love it when authors read in their own, especially if they have got a really distinctive voice, like Malcolm Gladwell or Simon Winchester. Oh, the OG.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this is definitely playing into your strengths, isn't it? All these planets is this business of information, awareness, who's who in the zoo.
Totally. It's funny. I started listening to podcasts in 2005. which is so early. Like back when iTunes was the only game in town. And the reason I started listening to them, hilariously enough, like this is all just going to be me venting about my work history on this episode.
Well, that's fine.
But I had a job like literally in an office, which is like now I've been remote since like almost 2010, like exclusively for a variety of companies. But back then I was working in an office and I was parked right next to the HR coordinator, and one of her main functions was to call people and do pre-screening interviews. So when someone sent their resume to that company, I would be sitting next to this girl who would go through a list of the same questions every single call. And I would have to hear her saying, "Hi, this is so-and-so from such and such company, and you sent us your resume, and can I just ask you a few questions?" "Okay, great." And then she would ask the same questions over and over all day. And I wanted to bash one of our heads against the wall, and it was not going to be mine. So, it was pretty great that I got, I won actually an old-timey iPod Shuffle. Now you'll have to Google this if you're listening along, and if you don't know what this is, it was literally the size of like a large postage stamp. And if you don't know what a postage stamp is, anyway, we're
Google that as well.
We're ancient and we're talking about the lore of the early 2000s.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was about the size of like a large postage stamp, and it would clip onto your shirt or backpack or what have you. And it had like wired headphones, and it held literally like maybe 10 to 12 podcasts. Like the size of it was, I can't even, 500 megabytes. Like it was tiny. It was not even a gigabyte of space on the thing. And I would listen to like all the podcasts that I had downloaded, and I would have to do it every day because then I'd run out. But I would just sit there wired and listen to podcasts all day in my head as I was working to not have to listen to this girl interview people.
Good heavens. So you're quite particular then about the information that comes in as well. You won't just go through all the idle. How are you on idle chit chat then? I mean,
I probably am not great with it because I consider myself still, even though, I podcast and interview people, blah, blah, blah. I consider myself an introvert, but and I've probably said this before, it's my little joke. I'm like a vampire. Like I'm an introvert until you invite me in, and then like you can't get rid of me. But yeah, I mean, I don't like to just make conversation with, I'm not like, I don't have that Libra energy where you can just go and like make complete meaningless, or Gemini where you can just chat people up about nothing and it's just fine. I like quickly get to like, deep subjects or maybe controversial subjects, or like I'm not interested if we don't have something in common, and I just, my personality won't let me just kind of babble about something that I don't care about. So yeah, I am particular, but I do like to have a constant flow of information in my head. Wow. So I do love to listen to podcasts or YouTube or whatever, or Spotify all day. And it's usually not music. It's usually like nonfiction podcasts or audiobooks or the occasional fiction book if I find something that's interesting enough. Very rarely, though.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's funny. I think here's that moon in the 10th house, too. This, I think, goes back to the way my mother parented me as a tiny baby. She used to carry me around in, she calls it a snuggly, but I'm not sure if that's a brand name or it was just a little,
like a sling.
Like a front pouch.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So it would be just like, face, like, resting on her chest. And she would just talk to me all day as she went about her day. Went about her duties, her, doing dishes, driving to, do errands, whatever, gardening. And she just talked to me all day. So, that was like my own little podcast when I was a baby.
Wow. For those of you interested in a little more, I'm now offering online astrology seasonal sessions. So there's one session in each of the solar seasonal mid-months, which will be February, May, August and November. I'll be chatting about advanced astrology topics through a Zoom presentation. If you're interested, check out the link for my seasonal sessions in the show notes below. Now back to the episode. But still, with having these three planets there, it's hugely important that you're kind of in touch with the world and what's spotting and who's who in the zoo and all of these things, you know. Yeah.
I really do like to feel engaged in the world and like know what's going on.
Yes. Yeah, well, you do. You do. You are. I mean, yeah.
I even had a Gemini say to me once, she came over while we were getting ready for work, and I think she had to borrow something or whatnot, but she lived across the street, and we were watching Democracy Now!, which I'm not sure if you're familiar, but it's a news show, and it's very alternative news, and it was very, at the time, just like very antithesis of like your network news, where it's like these glamorous, like almost like porn star looking, you know, people kind of talking back and forth about like some, you know, just garbage. It was very serious. It was very pointed. It was very aggressive in a way, because there was no fluff. It was just like, here's this disaster that happened. All these people have died. Here's whose fault it is. And it was, it was kind of depressing, but I liked to know what was going on at the time. And, I've kind of gotten a little bit away from like that level of wanting to know, the death count every morning, first thing. But my Gemini friend was like, I can see why you like this. I couldn't do it, but I can see that you like to be sharpened up and ready to go out and face the world.
And you are.
This is your way of armoring yourself up with information. And I thought that was such a brilliant assessment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, folks, there it is.
There
3 planets in the 10th house.
And scene. Yeah.
All right. So let's turn our attention then to a Venus in the 10th house.
Yeah. So that's an interesting one.
Yes.
I'm thinking definitely a charismatic sort of, there's the feminine aspect of Venus, but everyone has a Venus, so it's not just...
But not everyone's got it in the 10th house, right?
Right, exactly. So it's not just a woman thing. Like when we talk about the moon, the moon and Venus are traditionally feminine. But...
Yeah. So some of my thoughts are on this about in the career type fields, they would do well in things like diplomacy and positions that require charm and grace.
Yeah, definitely. Whether that be emotional intelligence sort of thing, like negotiations, or...
They're probably good, smooth
talkers.
Yeah.
Or even something more like dance or theater or museum curation, art.
And they're probably good looking as well, pleasantly, whatever the trend happens to be at the time. Mm-hmm. And they could be someone who's also known for their taste, style, or ability to create beautiful things.
Totally.
So this could be a fashion designer.
Yeah.
It could be a interior home person. What do they call those people?
A decorator.
Like Sarah Richardson or whoever.
Yeah, like the home stagers, people who stage homes to be sold.
Exactly.
Yeah,
make it look good, and everything's looking good, and they've got an eye for that sort of thing. So I think that would be a good placement too. Yeah. And they're also likely to be people, because this is the planet that rules both love and money, really. I don't want to say marry up, but publicly improve their lives by associating with wealthier people than what they are.
Power couple.
Yes.
Yeah, a power couple, or possibly finding a career in something to do with relationships, something like counseling or divorce lawyer. God, yikes. No, but I know. But Venus is associated with the law as well. Like Libra has that association.
Yes.
And
or even something in the money markets as well,
or film or TV or something.
But they're probably, if they're a woman, they're likely to be beautiful, regardless.
Yeah, or thought of as beautiful somehow.
Well, maybe
they even come across as more attractive than they mathematically are. Like they just they know how to present themselves, and
they can pull it together. They don't go outside in their pajamas.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Hope nobody's going to notice.
Or in Vancouver, the Lululemon.
Well, they're Lululemon. Yeah. Well, yes, of course. Everyone goes out there.
It's just practically a uniform here. Mm-hmm. That's the summer uniform, and then the Eddie Bauer is the winter.
Is that right?
Or MEC, yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a look, isn't there? Mm-hmm. A city look for sure.
Outdoorsy.
Yeah, but they're likely to maintain, a good marriage, good relationships. It's a nice place, Venus. So I think most planets in the 10th house are well placed anyway.
Yeah, totally. And this is also the type of placement where you do not want to fight in public. You don't want to air your dirty laundry. You don't want your kids misbehaving. You don't want your husband
spitting in the street.
Yeah, or like if there's any infidelity, or it's very much washed or swept under the rug, whatever you want to. How do you say that? Swept under the rug. Yeah, definitely putting forth a united
face.
Front, a good face.
Public
presentation
face
is everything.
Yeah, it must be a good position to have. I mean, Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on and let's have a look then. What about Mars in the 10th house?
Yeah, and I think we've talked about Mars in the 10th house a bit because my partner has that.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's
Gosh,
also...
you are quite a 10th house couple, aren't you?
Right, yeah. But it's also the most represented house in the U.S. presidents. So if you look through the...
Mars in the 10th.
Yeah, if you look through the charts of all the U.S. presidents, there's a statistically completely unlikely slant towards Mars in the 10th house. Wow. More of them have that placement than any other placement. It's something like out of all the 47 or how many there have been, like more than 6, maybe even more than 8 have had that placement, including Donald Trump. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Wow. I mean, so we've got the martial quality, the ambition and all that stuff.
So a war president as well.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, aren't they all?
Well, yes, but they get the ticket on we're going to war. We're going to sort this out.
Yeah. Whether it's a war on drugs or a war on poverty or a war on the enemy, or that's how they win. Is like we're going to war against whatever the problem is. It's,
yes.
War. War on ignorance, war on drugs, war on starvation, all that stuff. Yeah.
I do think this is a placement of Mars in the 10th house of the entrepreneur. It's someone who can go it alone, independently, and make their own company, their own career, their own, what do we call it? You start maybe with a side hustle, but it becomes solopreneur. They are perfectly fine going alone, doing their own thing. Totally. They don't need to be mollycoddled behind a hierarchy of a great big corporation.
In fact, they're much better if they don't.
Yeah.
And actually, that's an interesting thing. Just in the political realm, it's a funny placement to have so common for the U.S. presidents, because that seems like such a regimented, like you have to work your way up to blah blah blah. But that disruptive quality of being someone with Mars in the 10th house, it makes them more attractive as a leader, because it's not just they're just doing what's always been done. They're you kind of want someone who's like a disruptive hero, or as Eric Francis recently said, the U.S. really loves a rebel, like a
Billy the Kid and things like that.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very much that way. Yeah. But I love what you said about entrepreneurial, because that is definitely something I've seen with Mars in the 10th house placements, and people who can just change their career on a dime and then kind of go in a different direction and really just almost like a chameleon, kind of like remake themselves. And
they're quite. That's where the action goes. We're going to do something and
because they know what they're good at, and they can very easily convince others. Whether they can then follow through with that or change their minds later. It's That's it's a very enterprising and
enterprising. Yes, I think so.
And forceful sort of position for Mars.
Yeah, strong. Good. All right. Let's then have a look at Jupiter in the 10th house.
Yeah.
Now, this is considered a fortunate placement. I mean, Jupiter in the top of the chart's got to be a great big thing, and they're likely to have significant professional expansion and opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
That they could probably, if they did start a business, they could grow it into Amazon Legion. I don't know what Bezos' chart looks like, but he came from nowhere, right? And look at the size of this thing.
Yeah.
And of course, then they're likely to be working in fields such as education, religion, and international affairs. Mm-hmm. But I think that it's a broad optimistic. I don't know if this would be your... The person who travels around with a backpack, what do they call those?
Backpacker.
The digital nomad type who just goes here and there for 6 months, 3 months, riding on a bus, on a camel. Next thing you know, I mean, it looks great, but I don't know. But you
can work from anywhere.
Yeah. I think it's a very optimistic position. I think you can do something when you've got a position like that, and probably grow and build and inspire others to grow something big as well.
For sure. Yeah, there's definitely a really good leadership quality here. And also, this is probably not the person who if they're laid off or they lose their job or their company folds or whatever, they're not going to become depressed and flounder around. They're going to pretty much immediately turn around and do something else. And, oh, this is great. This is an opportunity to do what I've always wanted to do, which is this other thing.
Yeah, you think, really?
Yeah. Where did that come from? Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine that is a very good placement for people. Yeah, optimistic placement, which is a nice way to put it.
Yeah.
And then if we have a look at then Saturn in the 10th house. Now this is its natural house, so Saturn sits well here because Saturn likes a good hierarchy.
Yeah.
It likes you. You've got to pay your dues.
Right.
Do your time.
Yeah.
What's the other one? Your due diligence to get where you are. And this then is supportive of things such as the military, where you have to go from up this pecking order. And many of the big corporations are like this too.
Yeah. Finance.
Yeah. Government.
Yeah.
You're a pencil pusher here, and 30 years later you're sharpening the pencil or something. I don't know. But I think it's traditionally a placement for a professional person.
Yeah. Yeah. And would you say, like, in your experience, when you've had clients who come to you, do they, because it's also the planet of restriction, so it can be great because Capricorn, that's an ambitious, it's like the sign of like the businessman and the father, the breadwinner, blah, blah, blah. But I'm wondering too, because there is that association with restriction. Yeah. Do you see...
What the trouble with having Saturn in the 10th house is that when you get your Saturn returns at age 30, which is typically the one, an unexpected restriction is likely to occur where you probably, and I've had clients like this where they actually lose their job unexpectedly or get laid off.
Yeah.
And because they have this loss of position, it affects their whole life.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Anyone with a prominent 10th house placement, there is so much wrapped up. And it's not just me with my 3 planets up there, including the sun, but anyone who has a strong 10th house, their identity is very much wrapped up in their position in the world, whether that's, through their career or their relation, or their reputation.
Yes.
And whether your career is your reputation or if it's some,
and it clearly is
more modern thing where like your online, identity,
your presence or something.
That's very important.
This is typically the case where if setbacks are going to occur, they will happen at these critical points as well.
Yeah.
And honestly, that goes for anyone who's got a Saturn transiting Saturn going over the midheaven and into the 10th. You are likely to suddenly be stranded on a desert island wondering what happened, And I know people it's happened to, and it came from absolutely nowhere.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just the fact that people would then say, well, just go and get another job. What is the big deal? They took it, and it affected their whole life.
Yeah, because with Saturn there, I would think that they feel like they've made all the steps. They've done all the correct things. They've climbed the ladder one rung at a time. They're not doing that Leo thing where it's just, it's a new thing. It's, they're not, it's not their identity. It's their livelihood. It's their, they're putting in the time. So if that doesn't work out, they're like, it's almost like their worldview is threatened.
Yes.
Like, what am I supposed to do now that the ladder has been cut out from under me? They don't, exactly.
It's a tricky one because when you do have Saturn in that position, the career path appears to be clearly laid out. And that is what the investment is into, perhaps in one big company.
Yeah.
But once that is removed, they have to go back to square one.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of internal stress on that.
For sure, yeah. And I like the way you said investment, because that is exactly how they would think of it. It's like an investment, but an investment in the stock market or in anything other than like
in your career,
it is a gamble. An investment is just another word for a gamble. It's just
but isn't this life?
Yeah,
but you think you're safe.
Yeah,
you think you've got immunity.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, everything like that: marriage, education, the career. That all of a sudden, AI takes over that industry, and you're like, "Oops, that's not a career anymore." Yeah, there is no safety.
Yes, yes.
Or maybe there's just multiple different safety nets that we have to weave as we're flying through the air.
I think with Saturn there, they feel that they have done the right things. They've read the right. They've stayed in the lines. They haven't
Yeah.
And because of that is the nature of Saturn there anyway,
Yeah.
when these things come along and the rug is ripped between them, underneath from them, you actually get this unbelievable loss of esteem. And anyway,
Yeah.
So
it's not all doom and gloom, but at the same time, Saturn is more of a, I wouldn't say brittle, but it's a harder.
Yes.
There is a brittleness to it.
Yes.
It's not. It's not a flexible.
Yes.
Watery.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that people don't come to astrologers when things are going great. They've just won the Nobel Peace Prize. They come when they've just lost their job of 30 years.
Yeah. Very much so. Yeah.
Mm. All right, let's move on then. What about Uranus and the 10th house?
Yeah.
So this is more likely to be the digital nomad, but it's I'm suggesting they're an unconventional career path or an innovative approach to the professional life.
Yeah.
So it's the rebel, isn't it? It's the
the app designer of the disruptive.
Yes.
Like the guy who invented Napster. I can't remember his name right now, but
all these tech things that are popping up. The AI people. I mean, they just. Who knows what they're thinking?
Yeah,
the next thing is they probably know, and we're
the guy who invented Airbnb, just thinking, this would be a nice way to not have to pay for a hotel, and next thing you know, it's ruined the renting industry across the world. Disruption is great, but there are things that are disrupted, and that's not always good.
Mm.
Yeah.
And of course, Uranus in the 10th is always the indication of a professional astrologer.
I was thinking that. Yeah. Super interesting.
Someone who perhaps the people who we know their name as astrologers, because, those, the big astrologers of the world, the people that if you, the man in the street knows sort of thing.
The ones who we call the OGs.
Yes. And anything, revolutionary that's being brought to the profession. So, but I do think with Uranus there, because of the breakage nature of Uranus, that they're likely to be multiple different careers in different fields. It's not going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
And they're going to be having fingers in multiple pies at the same time.
Which absolutely makes sense because in the lifetime of, what are we talking? We're talking Uranus. So let's say 84 years, right? The Uranus return. And many people live much longer than that. That's just the average in, I don't know if it's North America now. It fluctuate, but it's around there. So 84 years. And you're going to have a bunch of different careers. Like the days of you start at the Ford plant or whatever, and you're right fresh out of college, and then you retire with honors. It's not common anymore.
Yeah. Okay, so
Neptune in the 10th.
Neptune in the 10th.
I know how you feel about Neptune in the second house. Please refer to previous episodes. But so Neptune in the 10th house, I would think, definitely would augur a career in film or photography or something where you are putting forth some kind of glamorous, maybe ministry of propaganda or showrunner or something Neptunian like bartender or
magician.
All of those magicians out there. It's a thriving career. Anything in hospitality or somewhere where you're creating an illusion, like wedding planner. Oh my God, right? Yeah. Actually, that would be good for Venus in the 10th.
Yeah.
But wedding planner,
Showtime.
Influencer, where you're putting forth some sort of like lifestyles of the rich and famous, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Where you're
Robin Leach,
right? Or like the modern Robin Leaches, who are like these dudes on these, finance bros on YouTube who have these like millions of followers who are like watching their weird stock chart illustrations, and like every thumbnail is like a red line pointing downwards with like, oh no, or danger, or, the name of some company with a big line through it. And you're like, oh, what? What's happening? Yeah. And the only reason I even know about that is because Roger dabbles a bit in the stock market. And I see these stupid things on YouTube, and I'm like, why do they all have the same jagged line? Yeah, it's like clickbait. But
so clickbait.
So Neptune in the 10th house, one possible thing would be like,
it's what the eye doesn't see. How do you say that?
Yeah, it's like a sleight of hand, but yet also like, oh, you can make millions if you just do this.
Of course. It's exactly. All of those things, I think, as well. And I've also got there's some ideas on the potential inspiration and intuitive understanding in professional matters. So there might be, this could be your guy who is your visionary in your company. Ooh, yeah. He's the guy who sits in the back when the meeting's happening and then in the end picks off the guys and says, no, get rid of this one or get rid of that one. Yeah. The guy behind the scenes who's feeling the vibe of what's going on, and not the headhunter. That's not the word I'm looking for. The head, not the one who is the power behind the throne because he's whispering in the ear.
Yeah, like the
vibe,
the modern day corporate Rasputin.
Yes,
right.
Even you want to say maybe even the psychologist, like in Billionaires, where she's just behind the scenes trying to prop up this and prop up that.
Yeah, that show. Oh my God, Billions.
Yes.
I was thinking that exactly. I was thinking about that one dude. I can't remember his name, but the older dude in Billions who's like that, and also the woman.
He was in Star Trek as well. That guy. He was cute, right? Yes. Him. Amazing. And it's the person who's they're not the headpiece. They're not the face of the company. No. They're the one whispering and paying attention to the vibe and the atmosphere that's going on with the culture of the company,
which is super important yet easily overlooked. And also for someone, if like, let's say the leader has, Mars or Saturn or Jupiter in the 10th house, you're going to want someone with Neptune in the 10th house who can see all of that murky, not so clear stuff and help bring it to your attention. You want someone in, or maybe as we're going to get to the Pluto in the 10th house, you're going to want one of those guys and or girls, obviously, or they, them, in your second in command kind of position where they can.
It's the person
you're not seeing this.
Yeah, this person is going to be the one who's also talking to like the mailman and the tea lady to find out what is really going on. Yeah, because the guy at the top doesn't know.
Yeah, consulting the financial astrologer and saying like, oh my God, there's something coming that no one sees.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a position that I think with Neptune, you don't see these people coming. Yeah. Even if you're working at a company, there's going to be someone who's got the ear of the boss. And this is likely to be this Neptune in the 10th, who is, their career is resting on being able to read the room and the mood.
This is an interesting kind of, it's almost like a dark take on Neptune. I love it. Yeah. I'm thinking now of like the quants and the people who are like, have all the screens and they're seeing all this stuff.
Yes.
And it's the all-seeing eye of the,
But they're not the face, so you don't see them because they're elusive in that way.
Totally.
It's like on
that other show.
The Good Wife.
Oh, yeah.
Eli Gold. That's him.
Totally.
In the background, pulling the strings. But you never see him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
So it's keeping a finger on the pulse. Yeah. That's Neptune. Totally. And of course we can take it to straight up that if you're a regular person, you could just be an artist or a ballerina or what have you.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Creating beauty, creating illusions.
Yes.
Because it's like Ava Gardner supposedly said to Howard Hughes, which was one of my favorite lines from The Aviator, and he was like washing his hands obsessively and saying, it's not clean. And she's like, well, nothing's clean, but you are best though. Nothing. If you look close enough, nothing is clean.
Nothing is. No.
But yeah.
Good. Yeah. All right. Let's have a look then at Pluto in the 10th house, which you did allude to a moment ago.
I did.
This is a power position.
The king of the underworld. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Godfather.
Yeah.
What was that guy? I can't remember his name in that series. The Sopranos. That guy.
Yeah. Yeah. The mob boss. Yeah.
So this is a super, super power position. If you're just a regular person, you're likely to get transformation through your career.
Yeah.
But if you decide to go the whole hog with Pluto, because it's prominently placed here, you may find that there's a lot of dealing and people owe you favors.
Yeah.
You build that they owe you one.
Yeah.
And that's how you're moving forward.
Money is really big with Pluto, but also the underworld, that McMafia thing, the dark side of money and capital, but also just shady deals that are kind of like under the rug, and like dealing with secrets.
Yes.
Being an investigator.
FBI.
Being a fraud and analyst.
Oh, imagine.
Yeah, or a fraudster. Creating the viruses and the apps that steal your things, or fighting those people. And
yes.
Yeah, dealing with all this. And also all the death industries. My God, like we don't talk about that, but everyone dies. Everyone.
The undertakers of this world.
Yeah, and morticians and all of that stuff.
All of those. We would say that Pluto does what nobody else. They do the jobs nobody else wants.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and there have been tons of TV shows about that too. Like since we've been bringing in these Six Feet Under and all that, the death industry is enormous and very much under wrap. Sounds like I'm making a pun about mummies, but no.
Yes.
But also, I mean.
Dexter,
exactly. And also all of those investigation shows. And basically all of those shows where there's a medical examiner and they're doing autopsies and they're,
and these are so interesting.
We love them. I mean, the minute that I go, into a hotel, I'm like, okay, where's the CSI channel? Where's the Law and Order channel? I want to see an autopsy and I want to see it now, or an FBI investigation show where they're like, Adam Curtis is doing this like grim voiceover about, and then they found something unexpected behind the bedroom door.
Wow. Yeah. So it's a power position.
Yeah.
I do think these people with Pluto in the 10th try to hide the power they have because it's what gets you voted out. But they're good at that too. So anyone, if you happen to come across people with Pluto in the 10th, tread carefully.
I wonder, we actually, in Vancouver, we had a former coroner as our mayor quite a while ago, maybe like 20 some years ago when I first moved here, I believe, in the late 90s. And I was like, wow, he was also one of the very first mayors to march in the Gay Pride Parade. He was not, but he was an ally, as we say, which I found that very charming.
Yeah, but this is definitely a very powerful position.
For sure. And
even if it doesn't look like it, that's the trick.
Maybe they don't talk about it because they can't talk about it or they'd have to kill you, but maybe they don't talk about it because it's just not polite dinner conversation because who wants to talk about your job as an undertaker or...
When you're carving the turkey, no.
Yeah, actually, very recently I met a friend and her new partner is a criminal defense attorney, and he was regaling us about interesting stories about
I bet you were laughing
Chicago South Side and the crimes that he's defending, and it was super interesting. I loved it. Yeah. It's like getting a Law and Order episode for free.
Gosh.
Yeah, with dinner. Right.
All right, so can we have a quick look at the other two? Chiron in the 10th house.
Yeah, Chiron and Eris we're going to be doing, right? Oh, you said two.
Yeah, Chiron and Eris. So let's do Chiron first.
For sure.
So from my point of view, I think this is someone who has a career working in the healing professions.
Yeah.
Being a healer, counselor, and overcoming professional wounds, such as being laid off. So it must be a place, if it's in your natal chart, where you feel the pain if you get laid off. But by the same token, you will come back. You will lick your wounds and get back to it.
A life coach, a marriage counselor.
Yes.
Like even a high school counselor, someone who is teaching from experience.
Mm. And even the woman who works at the gym who's helping you, what do they call it? Physiotherapy, and all of these people.
All of those people, for sure.
Helping you get back to whatever it is, and give it charity workers as well would be under this.
Physical therapy, like someone physiotherapist, like who, when you've been injured and they're nursing you
did your neck in or something.
Yeah, teaching you to walk again as you're recovering from some accident or
So it's Chiron's a kind of a tricky planet all round.
Yeah.
But there is the upside, and it has to be in the healing professions.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great thing, maybe running a meditative workshop or that sort of thing. This is what I imagine.
Yeah, totally. Coaching people to overcome their pain and suffering and to become healers themselves, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
And then if we took a final glance at Eris in the 10th.
Yeah, the bad girl of the zodiac.
Yeah.
So Eris has been in Aries for most of the last many, many, many years, decades, in fact.
Yes.
And so wherever you have Aries in your chart, you are likely to have Eris.
Yes.
So if you, that would be...
Yes. And that's the one I do have.
in where in the 10th house?
Yeah.
Amazing.
I know.
Let us know what that's like.
Well, so I think that Eris in the 10th house is where you're drawn to careers that can expose injustice and inequalities, perhaps.
Oh, nice.
There can be a tendency to create discord in my professional setting. I've been known. But this usually stems from a deep-seated drive to reveal uncomfortable truths.
Yeah.
And I also want to say that I think your public reputation may be controversial, as you're not afraid to speak and stand up against established power structures.
I love it. I feel like there might be like a personal story in there.
Well,
if I was doing a job interview right now, I would be like, so Alison, tell us about a time when you've exposed injustice in the workplace.
Well, it's astrologically speaking, in the last 10 years, I've come across two particular people who wanted me to collaborate with them and do some conference work with them. And then I heard them interpreting somebody's chart, and I didn't like the way they were saying, and the words were, "This is problematic," to the client.
Yikes.
There was some aspect or other, and this phrase was repeated several times to this client. "This is problematic," and I'm saying, no, we don't want to say that because. That's not.
Yeah, that's the only thing they're going to remember if you say that to them.
Exactly, and so I chose to decline the invitation to participate with that group, and they all saying, "Why don't you do?" Blah blah blah. I'm saying, no.
It's not for me.
I can't. Yeah, it's not for me. I'm not I feel you can't be. What's the word where you're saying to somebody?
Yeah, it's like being a reductionist, but it's
yes, you're not helping. You just.
No. You're prescribing. It's not prescribing, but proscribing. You're saying this is a problem, and you're not. And
what you're saying is, in the natal chart, you're saying this is a problem. You are the problem. In fact, you are a problem.
Have a problem. You are. Yeah, exactly.
And the person's going away thinking, I've got this terrible, it was, Mars square Saturn. I've got this big problem. My life's over. And you get this.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that. I want to do astrology with a more. Let's work with the hand you were dealt and find the upside of everything.
Yeah.
Because there is one.
100%.
We can all just stay in bed all day, but you can't be going around saying to people, this is a problematic chart.
For sure.
What the heck?
Yeah.
And I do, so, and they got upset with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know I didn't explain why, which maybe I should have done, but I just didn't want to go down that road.
Yeah.
And it's that sort of thing where I'll draw the line.
Yeah.
And say, no, I can't work with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is that the sort of thing you were talking about?
I love it. Yeah, that's a great example. Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
It's people are coming to astrologers for help, and I'm not saying that I only sugarcoat things because I don't.
No.
But I certainly have never told a client, this is a problematic chart.
Yeah. No.
I.e., you are a problem, and it really was.
I mean, statistically,
I was devastated.
It doesn't even make sense. As a consulting astrologer, obviously the way to, help people is to give them, this is an opportunity, this is a challenge, but this is something that you can overcome, blah, blah, blah. And here's how you can overcome this.
Exactly.
Because you've also got this aspect,
the good
which,
things,
offsets it, or, it's in the first house, which is whatever. But also, if you statistically look at the charts of mass murderers and, horrible, war criminals and stuff, and then you look at the chart of like saints and the Dalai Lama and all these things, you're going to see similar aspects that they both have. It's not like you're going to see all the negative aspects just in these, the terrible people.
Exactly.
We all have challenging aspects and we all have positive aspects, and it's all about how you use it. Like you can't even identify, like if you just look at a chart without knowing who it is, you can't just say, oh my God, look, that terrible aspect. This must be Charles Manson or whatever.
Well, this is the thing, because on a day when a mass murderer is born, hundreds of other people are born with the exact same charts, and they are not mass murderers. Yeah. It's dependent what you do with it, and that's where the free will comes in.
Nature, nurture, free will, and also self-awareness and the desire to do good. Yeah.
Well, yes, I believe I have.
All of these
but
things
I do
know,
because of that Eris, it's more of a... I go along, and you won't see it, and then it just comes out. And probably twice in my life, I've had to draw a line and say, I'm not going to be party to this.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, are you doing the right thing? I mean,
Yeah.
And and that's what happened. So
nice.
Interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And that's interesting too, because it is in the 10th house, and it's something where you are not necessarily doing what's best for your career or for money or whatever you're standing up for, even if it's disruptive. You're just saying no.
Yeah. I can say no.
Yeah.
Professionally, and it may not have been the right move, but it was for me.
Yeah.
So
definitely. Well, it's better to seek out another opportunity than regret and feel like you're trapped in something that's unseemly and not the right fit, and doing negative things in the world, and then you're a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we have gone through all the planets in the 10th house. We've spoken quite a bit about introduction to 10th house matters, really. And we've learned a lot about Arwynne's 10th house and mine, that kind of came up at the end, which is, unexpectedly. But certainly it's a house where, you're going to learn the houses if you're learning astrology. So it's important to know them. Yeah.
It's a good house.
So if you've enjoyed this episode, please do consider sharing it with anybody who'd be interested. Please make sure that you're getting our newsletter, which you can sign up for at starzology.com/newsletter. Make sure you're following Arwynne's newsletter, and she is at...
I'm at mspink.net. That's mspink.net. And I'm blogging every week about art and society and
you have a newsletter?
My personal life. And I send out a newsletter every Saturday.
Okay, that's great.
And I'll be doing, I don't know when this is going out, but
Nothing to do.
It's okay. Just subscribe. It's good. It's always good.
That's great.
Thanks. Yeah.
So if you'd like to send any of your questions in, you can. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, click the top link and you can text us with your questions, and we'll be happy to answer them at some point. And and thank you so much for listening. So Arwynne, thank you for joining me again today.
Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time. Thanks so much for getting this far through the episode. I just want to take a moment to tell you about the two main options of my astrology services. So the first one is coaching. If you are an aspiring astrologer, and by that I mean someone who's perhaps a hobbyist astrologer or someone who's learning astrology or a student, or you've got a few books and you've been doing it for a while, but perhaps you need a little bit of help to bring it all together, then maybe getting some astrological coaching from me would be the answer for you. The astrology coaching I offer is a 1-hour session on Zoom, and it's tailored to answer your particular questions. For example, if you have issues with natal chart readings, we can go there. Or if you're having problems working with your forecasting, we can go there. Or even basic astrology stuff, or even getting yourself organized for your astrology business. The idea is that astrological coaching will answer your particular questions. It's tailored specifically to you and where you are in your astrological journey. And I'm happy to help you out with some guidance about how you can get going, what to focus on, and what to dismiss. So that would be the astrological coaching for people trying to learn astrology. The second astrological service I offer is consultations. So this is for someone who perhaps doesn't know anything about astrology, but they just want to have their chart read or get their chart done. Call it what you will. So once more, this is a 1-hour consultation over Zoom. I will interpret your chart, tell you about the main features, tell you about where the energy is flowing, and all the rest of what is entailed in a thorough natal chart interpretation. I can also add in some forecasting in there too, bearing in mind we only have 1 hour. So just in summary, I've got coaching for people who want to learn astrology, and I've got consultations for those who want to get an astrology reading done. I'm Alison Price from Starzology.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.